We talk a lot about the bubble. We're all in bubbles. We are all surrounded by people. And those people, they tell us things and we tell them things, and we hear things and they hear things, and we synthesize, we analyze, we take a comprehensive look at things and we weave them together into the stories we tell ourselves. Unfortunately for the Democrats, their bubble is the culturally dominant bubble. And when I say culturally dominant, I do not mean it is dominant with the majority of the people. It is dominant with those who set the opinions of prevailing culture. And prevailing culture in this country is far to the left of where the people in the country are right now. Look at how transgenderism has resurfaced around the country and the like. The agitated push there, the parental backlash, it should tell people something. But the cultural elite in this country believe they are dominant. They control most of the media. They control Hollywood and television shows. They control the Democratic Party, and they tell each other that they are right. And inside that bubble, they affirm each other's core beliefs, and they allow very little information in from outside that challenges it. I mentioned last week the closing of the Democratic mind, how Democrats now will not allow in data points that might challenge them. They have epistemic certainty on all of their beliefs. The problem here is that their beliefs are not necessarily right. And occasionally, something penetrates the bubble. And it begins the great freakout. But what we see is that with the Democrats in particular right now, because their voices are so dominant culturally in the media, on television shows, the late night comedians, the Democratic Party, oftentimes what they do is they will push back and say, no, who let that in here? It's wrong. Here's why it's wrong. So, for example, you have Greg Sargent at the Washington Post reassuring Democrats with data from a Democratic pollster who is a progressive, who is backing progressive candidates, that actually, Democrats, it's okay. This is a highly competitive race. Let me tell you why. And they tell the Democrats exactly what they want to hear. The great freak out has begun again, and yet again, they're pushing back. Now, listen, objectively so. I don't care whether you're on the right or the left. You need to just take this with the truth, because it is the truth. Both sides get into bubbles. And the way to get out of the bubble is to challenge yourself regularly with things that are not necessarily conventional wisdom, but what the other side believes. And what outside observers tell you. And if you cannot synthesize them into your worldview, you should be able to change the way you're seeing the world at the moment. And Democrats are having a harder time doing that because Trump bad, Republicans bad, they're anti-democracy. And they're right on all these issues. Remember, Democrats believe, because Barack Obama told them, that history bends in their direction. So that this comes from NBC News is most striking, but it comes from Mark Caputo and Jonathan Allen. Mark Caputo is a longtime journalist in Washington who we don't always see the world the same way, but Mark Caputo is more realistically grounded in the way he sees the world and objectively understands that both sides get into bubbles. And one of the things Mark Caputo as a journalist has always done that I've appreciated, even when I don't agree with them, is he pierces both sides' bubbles with countervailing data points. He's doing it now, and the Democrats are very not happy. Turns out, the American Federation of Teachers, an institution of the left and the Democratic Party, has conducted a poll, and they used Hart Research, one of the most famous pollsters within the Democratic Party, to conduct the poll. You may need a cigarette for this. Turns out, in a battleground state survey, that is, a survey of swing state voters, using a Democratic polling firm, the Democratic institution, the American Federation of Teachers, found Ron DeSantis is right. I know. Before a friendly audience of conservative moms, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on Friday excoriated political opponents for wanting to sexualize children and warp kids' understanding of race and history. The charged campaign rhetoric and remarks to the Moms for Liberty group was usual fare for DeSantis. But the political backdrop was as atypical as unexpected. The day before his speech, one of the nation's teachers' unions that opposes him released a battleground state survey showing voters approve of DeSantis' policy positions and some of his rhetoric. The American Federation of Teachers circulated the poll conducted by Hart Research, a Democratic polling firm, as a call to arms to emphasize more popular proposals, like spending more on schools and reducing class sizes and de-emphasizing fights that center on cultural issues. A major set of red flags in the poll for Democrats and teachers' unions were a series of questions that looked like they were ripped from DeSantis' Friday speech on critical race theory and teaching kids about sexuality and gender identity. While the survey didn't mention DeSantis by name, it tested education messages he's popularized nationally, more so even than Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, the Republican who won in a Democratic-leading state last year on parental rights education platform, and was far less provocative than DeSantis. One poll question found voters by a 32 percentage point margin said they're more likely to vote for a candidate who believes public schools should focus less on teaching race and more on core subjects. By 27 points, they said schools should be banned from teaching sexual orientation and gender identity to kids in kindergarten through third grade. By 28 points, they said transgender athletes should be banned from competing in girls' sports. The same poll suggests DeSantis has been smart about where to draw the line. Oh my gosh, an NBC reporter just said DeSantis was smart. Most voters said they would be less likely to back candidates who want to prosecute teachers for instructing students on critical race theory and gender identity. The same goes for candidates who want to remove books from school libraries. Recent polling on the Florida governor's race is scant, but most surveys show DeSantis leading both candidates. Now, a big takeaway from the poll. Democrats are on firm political ground when they talk about teaching the history of race relations in America, and when they fight efforts to ban teaching about sexuality and gender identity. You know, that's how they're going to pivot. They're going to say, we're not teaching critical race theory. We're just teaching about how everything in America is racist. We're not teaching sexuality and gender identity. We're just teaching the transgender unicorn. They need to know these things. Okay, let's just step back for one moment, please, here. For the last number of months, for the last half year, Democrats and much of the media, not the pundits, not the talking heads, the anchors and the reporters, they've been insistent. Republicans were wrong. Republicans were the fringe. Republicans were out to lunch on this stuff. That critical race theory isn't happening. And then when it's discovered to be happening, well, it's supposed to happen. It's the framework for teaching. It's not really the teaching, it's the framework. And that kids needed to know these things about transgenderism and sexuality and boys and boys in relationships and girls in relationships. And they need to know about sex at an early age, all these things. I mean, it's been in the last 6 months, we've suddenly seen, Democratic parents, you see this becoming a religion. There are rites and rituals that must be performed. You must have an abortion or give money to Planned Parenthood. You must attend a protest or support the protesters. You must put the Black Lives Matter sign in your heart, or in this house, we believe in science. And then you believe that boys can become girls, so you don't really believe the science. There are things you must do. There are rituals you must perform. And one of those has become take your child to drag queen story hour. In Washington, D.C., a Lutheran church just had drag queen story hour, talking about the mixed up gendered people in the Bible or some such. Yeah, really. It happened. It did happen. It was what, the evangelical Lutheran church, not the good ones. These things are happening. They are ritualistic. They are rights. It's not a coincidence that these things you're suddenly hearing about drag queen story hour everywhere. The left found out the right doesn't like it, and they found out, well, the right is opposed to this stuff, and they have woven it into their secular religion. You got to recycle. You got to drive a battery-powered car. You got to go to the drag queen story hour. You got to have an abortion or support abortion rights. It's part of their religion. We are seeing a religion develop in real time among secularists with their rites and rituals. And in that comes a dogma. And in that dogma is filled in with a bubble. And inside that bubble, they believe these things by faith. They believe by faith. The public wants this taught in elementary schools. By faith, the public believes that the entire nation is systemically racist. By faith, the public is supposed to believe that boys can be on girls' teams if they identify as a girl. This goes back to Roy Texeira's data as put out by Echelon Insights that overwhelmingly progressive voters believe that boys should be able to be in girls' sports. Hispanic and working class people do not. Overwhelmingly, progressives believe this nation is systemically racist, and overwhelmingly, Hispanic and working class whites do not. Overwhelmingly, progressives believe that this is not a good nation, and overwhelmingly Hispanics and working class people believe the nation is good. Overwhelmingly white progressives believe these things by faith in their bubble. They have developed their own religion. It is a secular religion. They deny it's a religion, but they have by faith beliefs. They have rites, rituals, liturgies, ecclesiology. They have hymns and anthems, all of their own that they sing. You hear them all at the Democratic National Convention every 4 years with all the celebrities singing Katy Perry beats. And now, here comes more data. Here comes more data. And the data is that Ron DeSantis turns out he's right. Parents do not want their children learning about sexuality and transgenderism before 3rd grade. Turns out parents do not want their children learning that systemically racism is everywhere woven into society. They don't want it. Turns out parents are not fans of drag queen story hour. What will the Democratic reaction be? This is their problem inside their bubble, and why DeSantis is on track for 2024 right now. Their problem will be they're going to change the language of what they're doing while still doing the things the parents don't like. And they will continue to do the thing the parents don't like while denying they're doing it. And the kids will still come home with rainbow transgender unicorn farts for homework assignments. The parents will still be livid. And the Democrats still will have no idea in November that they're headed towards a bloodbath at the ballot box because they have infuriated parents, alienated themselves, all while inside their bubble, telling themselves smugly, everyone agrees with us. Ron DeSantis is a bigot. Actually, no. You people are idiots, and Ron DeSantis is about to clean your clock, and so are the Republicans at the ballot box, because you've chosen not to listen. You've chosen instead to try to work everything into your worldview and dogma. You cannot let it be challenged. Your epistemic certainty is going to be the death of you at the ballot box.